Hi everyone, it's Alice here from the AHA product marketing team. Welcome to today's live tutorial where you're going to learn all about how to quickly create prototypes using the AI assistant. So while you're gathering, you'll see a quick poll pop up on your screen about how you're currently communicating visual concepts with your team. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so please take a moment to answer the survey. I'm very excited to introduce our two speakers today. So, first up, we have Sarah Moisten Thomas, a senior product manager here at AHA. Sarah today will go over insights and best practices about how our own team is using AI to drive innovation. Joining Sarah today is Peter Wisnant, a product evaluation manager. Peter spends his time helping product teams get the most out of AHA software, which makes him the perfect person to go over our live demo today. Now we can close out the poll and look at the results. So, got a mix. We've got some people using prototypes, very cool. We got some wireframes, still got some good old pen and paper, so a mix right now. So whether you are one of those people that's already playing around or using AI prototyping and you're looking to level up, or you're just starting out and you want to explore and you're excited to test it out, today you're going to leave this tutorial empowered to create those AI prototypes on your own so you can share and refine product concepts with your team that much faster. Thank you again for joining us today. Let's get started.
Hey, Dallas. Hi, everybody. I am excited to be here with you today to talk more about prototypes. Often, what we love most as product managers is launching features that really delight our customers, but nothing slows down that innovation quite like miscommunication or unclear concepts. And I'm sure we've all been there where you have an idea that is crystal clear in your head. And then when you go to try to explain it, you're met with confusion or a blank stare. And just describing the user experiences is often not enough to build that deep shared understanding that you need. So you need to be able to communicate your ideas visually as well to validate those ideas quickly. And that's where prototyping comes in. So instead of having abstract conversations with your stakeholders or designers or engineers about how something could work, or relying on static sketches that can leave things open to some interpretation, you can all look at the same functioning prototype to see how it would actually work. I find that it's an incredible discussion tool. It's a lot easier to get aligned that way because you're reducing the number of assumptions that each person is making. And the UX and engineering team, of course, are still going to be creating their deliverables of high fidelity designs and the actual code, but having a prototype as a starting point for that exploration can be really valuable. And now with AI, you can spin up multiple prototypes in just minutes and iterate on the spot. It's definitely been a game changer, and we're excited to show you how you can start doing this yourself. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Peter.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. So I'm excited today to help you guys learn how to quickly turn product concepts into prototypes, enhance them with your own brand style, iterate on the desired experience, and include prototypes with your features. Now, before we dive in, we want to go over the AI assistant for anyone who needs a quick recap. You might have already used it to generate meeting notes or draft release notes, but it can do so much more than that, including, as you might have guessed, prototyping as well. So you can access the AI assistant using the sparkle icon in the top navigation of any page. You can also access this directly from within Whiteboards and Notes in the toolbars there. So it's going to open up the assistant in a side panel here so that you have access to the context of the work that you're already taking a look at while you open up that assistant. I also want to show you the prompt library that we have. And this has a lot of options to help you get inspired on what you can use the AI assistant for. A ton of things from competitive analysis to feature prioritization and many more. We also have the ability to provide custom instructions. So my team in this case has added some custom instructions for activities that I might utilize the assistant for on an ongoing basis so that I can easily get some consistency across the results of those. We're going to start with a fairly simple prompt here on generating a feature description. Now, it's important to note that the AI assistant has all of the context for the rest of your plans and everything that you're working inside of AHA on, including the ideas that you're collecting from ideas portals. So you can see those referenced here. And then it's providing this really great feature description for me to start with. I can chat back and forth to refine on this feature description, but it's a really great starting point. Now, let's get to the AI-powered prototyping. So over to you, Sarah, to introduce that first step.
And if you haven't already tried using that AI assistant before now, I'd say go try it out before or after the tutorial. It can do some really complex operations that save time, like Peter just shared with drafting a feature description. I also use it for creating reports or writing progress updates, so it can be a big time saver. But now that we've covered the AI assistant and how it works in general, let's go ahead and dive into how to use it for prototyping specifically. So you can use the specialized prototyping agent to create a fully interactive prototype yourself. It's a good, just low effort way to see whether an idea makes sense in practice before getting those features into development. So if you've ever wanted an easier way to show instead of tell, this is a great tool for that. So let's jump into our demo.
Thanks. So let's take a look at this weekly check-in feature inside of Fredwin Wellness. So I will be the product manager at Fredwin Wellness. This is our fictitious enterprise platform designed to elevate employee engagement and productivity at scale. So here's our weekly check-in feature. We can see from this description that we're allowing users to select their mood, see the trend or history of moods over times as part of their weekly check-in. Lots of cool things there. And we're at the point where we're ready to actually create a prototype. If you need help drafting the description, that's obviously where what we just covered will be helpful for that. So in this case, I'm actually going to switch to the prototype agent that Sarah just alluded to, and I'm going to put in a fairly simple prompt for this one. So create a prototype of this feature. You'll notice I didn't even have to reference this feature. It already understands that I'm in this feature in AHA. So when I open up that assistant, it's already referenced there for me. This is also where you could utilize some of those custom instructions, but I really want to show you how easy it is to get a lot of value with such a simple request as create a prototype of this feature. So what that's going to do is it's going to, understand the feature, this specific feature. It's going to review the details, the description that we have. It's going to generate the underlying code, and then ultimately it's going to generate that really cool clickable preview of what that prototype might look like. We can also open this up in full size for a more intentional view of the assistant as well. So as it's building that, I'm going to hand it back to Sarah, and she's going to share some more insights and best practices.
Yes, our own product team here at AHA has been using the AI assistant heavily to quickly create prototypes ourselves. Before that, if we had wanted to create a prototype, typically we would need some help from a designer or maybe even an engineer if we wanted to build a quick proof of concept. And then if we wanted to make changes, which let's be honest, we usually do, there would be some back and forth with those folks to get those changes done. But with the AI assistant, we get to be more self-reliant in both creating and then refining those previews. And because we're prototyping right alongside our strategy and our roadmap, we always have that full context at hand. So it's easy to keep everything connected to that bigger picture, like Peter just showed with tying that to your feature that you have. So a few ways you can use prototypes. The most common, of course, is the example we're sharing here. You can spin up a preview of a new feature that you're defining to see how folks think about it, get some feedback on it. Can also be helpful to try out multiple different UX paths to see what works best. And you can uncover some usability issues or maybe tricky edge cases long before you hand off that feature to design and engineering, so you can save some of those delays down the line. And then I also find it's helpful for catching some assumptions that you might be making yourself or spots where your feature definition was a little ambiguous and you need to clarify. To share some best practices about how to get really good results with that output, you're going to want to add a detailed description to guide it, just like Peter shared. And you can add some context about what your product does, who's using it, and you're going to want to specify the different functionality that you want and the expected behavior that you want to see. So structuring that prompt clearly can help. We did that by pulling in a structured feature definition in the description field. I like to use bullet points to really organize the actions that a user needs to be able to perform. And then as you're iterating, you can change one thing at a time and go step by step to make sure that it gets to where you're looking to be. Because I'd say the goal here isn't highly polished visuals or like a pixel perfect design. It's more focused on the functionality and understanding how users are going to move through it. You need to get aligned on those fundamentals first, and that'll make it easier to have targeted, more productive discussions with design and development so that everyone can move faster and focus on building the right thing. But I see that our prototype is already ready. So Peter, go ahead and walk us through that.
Yeah, thanks. But I mean, I do love how prototyping as a product manager, it allows the whole team to move more intentionally and to reduce those downstream delays as well. As Sarah mentioned, this prototype is ready, so I know you're probably itching to see it. I just want to point out as well some aspects of how this is created. So you can see that we're actually creating it in terms of components, as we refer to it. This is going to be really helpful when we talk about adjusting and iterating on this prototype in just a few moments. But as I said, you probably want to see what that prototype looks like. So here we go. Here is a first prototype that we're getting out of the AI assistant. So this is a really great kind of first step into what we might expect this feature to look like eventually. As Sarah said, this is not pixel perfect, and it's not really intended to be. This is just getting us a really good first view. It's interactive in the sense that we can actually click through these items here. There might be different tabs that we can click into as well. So just really giving me a good sense for what that user can experience when we actually build out this feature. It also includes the underlying code as well. So this might be really helpful to hand over to the engineering team to eventually build out when the time is right. And also, I want to point out the pointer feature here as well. So this allows me to actually highlight specific components within this prototype. And so when I talk about iterating on it, this becomes a lot easier because I can reference those specific components. Perhaps in the this week, how are you feeling section, I want to understand what options are provided here. Maybe I want to switch out some options so I can actually iterate on that specific area within the prototype rather than redrafting the entire thing, for example. Speaking of iterating on that, one thing that you're probably going to want to do is to add your own branding style to it to make it easier to imagine for your colleagues without it being so high fidelity that they think that this has already been built, for example. So what we're going to do here is we have a screenshot of our fictitious application, Fredwin Cycling, that you guys are probably familiar with. So we're going to take a screenshot from that application. We're going to paste it into the AI assistant, and we're also going to include a prompt alongside that as well. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to pull out the stylistic elements from that screenshot, the fonts, colors, logo, and it's going to apply those to my prototype and update it. Now, keep in mind, I didn't actually have to work with, the marketing team, for example, or other teams to get the right color palette or hex code or anything like that. I simply took a screenshot of my application and gave that to the assistant. So also reducing the back and forth and resources that you have to pull from other teams to just get a really quick to value prototype here. If this instruction works out well for you, you can favorite that, and then that adds it to your custom instructions as well. So you can use that time and time again. Those of you who are familiar with AI know that the different phrasing and wording can often yield different results. So find something that works for you, save that as a custom instruction for future use.
Yeah, it's been really helpful to be able to save those instructions and use them again. Because your prototype here, it doesn't have to be generic. You can tailor it to what you want to share and the audience that you're sharing it with. So sometimes those little touches can go a long way to making it feel a little more familiar to stakeholders or customers, so you can kind of picture it as part of your product and then give more useful feedback. You can also tailor the fidelity based on your audience and the input that you need just by adjusting that prompt. So for instance, you can ask for a more polished prototype when you're validating concepts with customers, or if you've already worked through a lot of that uncertainty already. Or you can keep it really low fidelity. One great example from another PM on our team was to create a prototype that visualized just some business logic around licensing. So it wasn't a user-facing interface, but it was helpful to build some shared understanding with engineering about how it was going to work in different scenarios. So you can get creative with how to use these prototypes. The purpose is really to communicate concepts rather than dictate the exact UI. And that can bring to light any concerns. You can determine the right direction before you start off on the rest of the process. Because when you're at this stage of prototyping, what you're really doing is gathering information to make sure we're on the right path.
Yeah, that's a really great point. So once I have that branded prototype, I can start to take it to the next stage, really, which is to share that out with other stakeholders, get their feedback on it, and then decide how we want to move forward with the design and with the eventual feature that we're building out. So when I do have that branded prototype, all I have to do is click the share this artifact icon and then click copy link. And then I can paste that into the whiteboard where I'm collecting feedback from other stakeholders as well. So I'm going to pass it back over to Sarah for some best practices on reviewing those prototypes.
Yes. So when we first review prototypes here at AHA, it's often with the product manager, the UX designer, and an engineering lead. If it is a high impact feature, then you might also consider including product marketing or customer success or sales, to benefit from their market and customer expertise there. And just like Peter mentioned, you can see here, we find that embedding prototypes in a whiteboard can be a really helpful way to share them and get feedback, because I think too often prototypes kind of live on an island that only a few people can access. So your teammates have to switch between apps or just review screenshots to give their input, which kind of defeats the purpose of building an interactive prototype. So we find it easier to create and share and review prototypes all in the same tool. So you can present your whiteboard as well as have your reviewers click around and explore the prototypes themselves. Like you can see here, they can add comments or annotations, little sticky notes with their thoughts and questions, either live as a group in a review session or even asynchronously as well. And then you can go back and review that feedback and iterate on the prototype with the AI assistant based on all that input to figure out the best approach. So Peter is now going to show us how that live interaction step works.
Yeah, so let's fast forward a little bit. And here we are looking at the whiteboard where I embedded the prototype. Here is one of the few that I did. And as Sarah mentioned, I can actually interact with this prototype here. So I can double click. And that allows me to actually scroll through the prototype. I can change the buttons around. I can move to different tabs. So really giving my colleagues a feel for how this is going to look when that feature is actually built out. Now, this whiteboard is the same whiteboard that we actually used for the brainstorming process as well. So over here is the brainstorm that we had to start with. A lot of this feedback is what helped us to actually generate the feature description in the first place. We also added a process flow diagram to help visualize that user experience. So this was really just the natural place to add these prototypes so that we could collect that feedback alongside with the feedback that we had in the early stages. So as Sarah mentioned, users can add their feedback in a few ways. These stickies allow us to add comments or questions. Other users can, react to these with emojis. We can also add stamps in here as well to maybe talk about how this prototype is making us feel. So prototype 1, clearly a lot of anxiety around that. Prototype 2, we seem to like that a bit more. And then prototype 3, we're kind of on the fence about. So I think we'll probably end up moving forward with prototype 2. But first, I want to collect some feedback and summarize that. And that's as simple as selecting these items on the whiteboard, opening up that AI assistant in the toolbar, like I mentioned earlier, and then I can easily summarize that feedback here so that we can have a summary per prototype, and that helps us to really understand which one we should move forward with. As I mentioned, in this case, there's a clear winner. We're going to move ahead with prototype number 2, but based on the feedback, I do have a couple of things that I want to change about this. And so that's going to be as simple as clicking create new version. Maybe there's something like I want to move the second section up to the top, for example. So it's going to pull that prototype in into that AI assistant so that I can keep refining that.
And that refinement has been really helpful to be able to try out different paths then and there instead of tying up designer time with those early stage iterations. An example of this actually just came up the other day. I was in a meeting with leadership where a new concept came up. And then just a few minutes after the call, I was able to create a prototype of how I was picturing it could work and then run it past them to make sure we are on the same page. And it brought up a few tweaks that we needed to make, and I was able to update it right away and then share that with design. So all of this really decreases both the time and the cost of those early stage concepts and validating them so that we get to be more nimble and efficient. And as you can see, Peter's prototype here has been updated with the latest iteration. So we could take a look at that and continue to refine it until we're happy with the concept. You can also always refer back to a previous version in the future if you need to, using that share link that he copied earlier. But once you feel good about your prototype, then you can embed it into a feature description or maybe a strategy document. And that way, everyone from UX to engineering to leadership can have a nice walkthrough and get on the same page. Sometimes a prototype is worth 1,000 words, and it just helps ensure that everyone understands the same vision for that feature.
Yeah, awesome. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's embed this prototype in the feature. So here is that finalized prototype that we're all really happy with. To get this in the feature, it's as easy as clicking, again, this share this artifact. You know this already. Click copy to clipboard. And then on the feature itself, all we have to do is paste that into the description. I can resize this. I can interact with it just like I did on the whiteboard. So double click in. Anyone viewing this feature can now again, interact with it in terms of changing the buttons around, going to different tabs. So really helpful for them to have this right inside of AHA and not have to use another tool to go and find this. Now, in our case, we're ready to actually assign this to the UX team to start designing this. Now, they are working in AHA Develop, so they're going to easily see this prototype embedded in the feature record.
Thank you so much, Peter and Sarah. That was absolutely wonderful. Think about it. We started with a basic description of a feature, and within minutes, we have a fully functioning prototype that we can share and iterate on with our team. This empowers product managers to gain key learnings and drive innovation forward, validate new solutions that much faster. We're already saving weeks of engineering time using this approach with our own team, and we can just validate what is going to work and what isn't. So it's really, really helpful, and we hope that this will help your team do the same. We have a few minutes to answer some questions that came into the Q&A. Let's have a look. So first one, how can I get access to the AI prototyping tool?
Yeah, I can take that one. The great news is you already have access. If you have an AHA account, you have access to the AI assistant. So definitely encourage you, as Sarah mentioned, to go and explore it, create a feature description, create a prototype. All of the subscriptions to AHA come with a certain amount of free credits as well. And we have a lot more information on that. In fact, we'll paste an article in the chat so that you can review that. It even provides some guidance on, kind of anticipated credit usage. That's probably top of mind for you as well. Obviously, with AI, there's only so much you can know about what it's going to spit out. But you'll find that article really helpful as you use AI more.
Thanks so much, Peter. And yes, credits are pooled across your account. And in chat history, you will see how many credits were used. And yeah, we've dropped the article in the chat for more information. Next up, what's your advice for product managers who want to get their teams using AI prototyping?
I can take that one since we had to do it for our team as well. Because it's a new process. It's different than maybe what you've been doing before. So there's always going to be a little bit of change management in there. What worked well, maybe I'll talk about for the product team and then also for getting stakeholders to get on board with a new way of doing prototypes. For PMs, I think it's helpful to just try it out, maybe on a feature that they've already built or even a simple example outside of your product. Sometimes I think it helps to just get that first prototype out of the way to build some confidence in figuring out how that new tool works, right? It's a little bit different than what we've done in the past or with other tools. So just start simple and then start iterating to help everybody see what the AI assistant is capable of and also how quickly they can create something that's actually pretty sophisticated. So they can see, how quickly they can illustrate a concept just within just a couple minutes there. And then thinking about how to roll this out with your stakeholder groups that you might be getting feedback from. I think maybe the first time through, it's helpful to walk them through a prototype just to introduce it and explain how it works. And then let them click around in it themselves so they can get involved and get a feel for the UX themselves. I find that stakeholders really like having those interactive prototypes because it makes it more real. It helps them understand the concepts that we're trying to get across.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sarah. I love that. Next up, what other information in AHA software can help guide these prototypes?
I can take that one. I kind of spoke to this a little bit in the demo. So AI has the assistant in AHA has access to all of the information in your AHA account. So it's just a matter of telling it what you want it to consider, essentially. So let's say you have another feature that you want to reference as part of a description. All you have to do is add in the kind of record link for that feature, like I did in my example with a few ideas that I wanted to create a feature description from. So it's really just about telling it what you want it to consider. And that's where those custom instructions can be really handy as well. If you're doing this on a regular basis and you're constantly doing, let's say strategic planning, and you want it to keep in mind last year's initiatives and goals that were accomplished or that you didn't accomplish, for example. So it's really just a matter of kind of fine tuning it. As I mentioned, everyone who's worked with AI knows that you get different results based on your wording, your phrasing. So make sure you just kind of find something that works for you, save that as a custom instruction, but ultimately you can reference other records inside of your prompts to the assistant as well.
Super handy. Love that. All right, next up, where in the process do you all use prototypes? Is this done prior to getting a design created for this specific feature?
Yeah, that's typically when we bring them in. I think it's really helpful for validating new ideas and new concepts before they get to the point of needing full designs. So just the way you might even sketch something out on pen and paper or, draw out a wireframe. This is just another option, another tool in the toolbox of how to communicate those ideas and make sure that we're all aligned on where we're aiming, what direction we're going towards. So I would say, yes, typically before design, and it doesn't have to be a PM creating it. Maybe your designer wants to create them too. I think especially if you're trying to figure out, okay, which of these different solutions would be best. This is a really handy and fast way to be able to spin it up and just test out that concept. Whether you're validating that formally with like customer research or whether you're just showing it to a couple people internally to say, oh, nope, there's a dead end at the end of this workflow. If we do it this way, let's try this other approach. So I see it more as a tool for that communication and figuring out what direction you want to go rather than defining the exact designs at the end of the day.
Thank
So
you
hopefully
so
that helps.
much. Thank you. We had another question, which I can take. Can you share what is the engine behind the AI prototype? So, short answer, it's a combination of OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google. But I'm also going to put in the chat more information about the LLMs that we use here. All right, and we have time for one more question. We've got quite a few in the chat with the overall theme of can you go over how we can reference a screenshot for the AI prototyping as well? Oh, and then we also have one about providing feedback on that as well.
Yeah, I can speak to that one. So the screenshot, for example, I mean, you saw how easy that was. I have my screenshot here. I can copy this. I can throw that into the AI assistant, and it's gonna pull elements from that. It's intelligent enough to do that, and I gave it that prompt to help it understand what specific elements I wanted to pull from this, so that it didn't just give me, a prototype of my own product. I was looking for just the branding, the style from it. So it's about kind of using the screenshots in conjunction with those instructions. And again, I know I said this a couple of times, but the custom instructions, those will help because when you find something that works, you can apply that time and time again. In terms of then sharing this with other individuals, that's where we really love using whiteboards as a really collaborative visual way to gather feedback, show plans, brainstorm. So that's why we decided to put pretty much everything from the brainstorming process through to the prototyping process here inside of this whiteboard. So this is one area through which you can share that prototype. As you saw, it was as easy as clicking copy link to the prototype and putting it inside of this whiteboard. Anyone who has access to AHA can then actually interact with this prototype. They can view it. So, free viewers and reviewers, if you're on the Enterprise or Enterprise Plus plans, those users can come in here and interact with it for free and also leave feedback for free as well. So really, really handy to have that area through which you can collect that feedback. You can also share entire chats with other AHA users as well. So if you want to share what led to the prototype being generated and at different, maybe they could take that and at different stages, iterate on it to get a different version of the same prototype for you guys to, collectively decide which one might be the best version. So lots of ways you can share these and get feedback. If you have any follow-up questions to that, we would definitely love to hear those in our support team.
And another one that I like too, Peter, if you click on the embedded prototype, there's an option to open it in a new tab if you want just like a focused view of just that prototype. So that's an option as well.
Yeah, agreed.
Love that. Thank you both so much. And we just want to say a big thank you for joining us today. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.